All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep into the Cthulhu cult. And let me tell you, we've got some seriously intriguing sources to work with.
Oh yeah, we're talking about Professor Angel's manuscript, a detective's first-hand account of like an actual swamp ritual, and to top it all off, a sailor's diary, but like a seriously creepy one.
This real mixed bag, right, but that's what makes this so fascinating.
Totally. It's like having all these pieces of a puzzle.
Exactly. And the real challenge here, the mystery we're trying to solve,
Yeah.
is what is this cult all about?
Yeah.
Like, what are their secrets? What are they up to? And how dangerous are they really?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And to really untangle this whole thing, we need to start at the beginning
Okay, so back to basics. Where do we begin?
with Professor Angel and his first encounter with this whole otherworldly world.
Okay, paint me a picture. What happened?
Okay, so imagine you're this respected professor, right? Just chilling, probably having a quiet evening, when all of a sudden, this young sculptor shows up at your door, right? His name's Henry Anthony Wilcox, and he's super agitated, like really on edge.
Not exactly the kind of visitor you expect, huh?
Right. And get this, he's brought this bizarre sculpture with him, a bas relief.
Okay, that's a little strange, but what's so weird about the sculpture itself?
Well, it's not just what he sculpted. I mean, he claimed he made it based on these crazy, vivid nightmares he was having. Nightmares about these, like, cyclopean cities, you know? And they were all, like, dripping with this weird green ooze.
Cyclopean cities.
Yeah.
Dripping
Yeah.
with ooze. Okay, that's definitely creepy. But did he say anything else about the nightmares?
Yeah, and this is where it gets even weirder. He said he wasn't the only one having these dreams. Around the same time, Professor Angel was hearing about other artists all over the world reporting similar disturbing visions.
So it's like a global network of nightmares. That's pretty unsettling. Did these dreams have anything else in common? Like, besides the creepy imagery, was there a theme?
There was. So Wilcox mentioned hearing this voice in his dreams, right? Chanting this phrase, Cthulhu Ftan.
Cthulhu Fitan.
Yeah, and he couldn't translate it. Like, he didn't know what it meant, but it just filled him with this, like, deep sense of dread.
Cthulhu Fitan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. It's like inherently creepy, right? It's like something out of a dark fairy tale or something.
Exactly. And here's the thing. This phrase, this name, Cthulhu, it pops up in other sources, too.
Wait, are you talking about that detective's account we mentioned? The one who ran into that swamp cult?
You got it.
Yeah.
So we've got this police inspector in New Orleans, Inspector John R. LaGrasse, and back in 1907, he stumbles upon this seriously disturbing scene while he's investigating some strange activity in the Louisiana swamps. He basically walks in on this secret ritual.
Wow, I bet that was something else. What were they actually doing?
Well, they were chanting, dancing around this grotesque idol. And get this, the idol was like a dead ringer for the one Wilcox sculpted.
Hold on, are you serious? So we've got disturbing dreams, a creepy idol, and a secret cult in the swamp. This is starting to sound like a horror movie. So what happened next? Did LaGrasse arrest them all?
He tried to stop the ritual, but what he found was even more unsettling, the chant they were using. It was almost word for word identical to a chant documented decades earlier by an anthropologist who was studying a remote Eskimo tribe in Greenland.
Wait a minute, you're telling me this swamp cult in Louisiana and some isolated tribe in Greenland were using the same chant?
That's right. Pretty wild, huh?
It seems like a huge coincidence.
It does, right? But that's not even the creepiest part. Both of these chants, they translate to the same phrase. And it's a chilling one. In his house at Arlia, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming.
Okay, wow, that is seriously creepy. So who is this Cthulhu and what is Arlia?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question. From what Professor Angel could gather, and from LaGrasse's notes, Cthulhu is one of the great old ones.
The great old ones.
Yeah, like these ancient, insanely powerful entities that came from the stars eons ago. And Arlia, that's their city, their sunken city, a place so beyond human comprehension. It's just mind-boggling.
Okay, so this cult is worshiping beings from outer space. That's a pretty wild concept. But why? Like, what's the point of all this chanting and idol worship? What are they hoping to achieve?
Well, from what we can piece together, it seems they believe that these great old ones, they'll return to Earth one day, you know? And when they do, they'll usher in this whole new world order.
So they see themselves as preparing for this return.
Exactly, like keeping the memory of these entities alive through their rituals and, like, actively working towards their eventual awakening.
It's kind of fascinating and a little terrifying to think about. But is there any indication of how big this Cthulhu cult is? Are we talking about a handful of swamp dwellers, or is this something much larger?
Well, that's what Professor Angel was trying to figure out. He suspected there might be more to this cult than meets the eye, and his suspicions grew when he came across this newspaper clipping about a mysterious incident at sea involving a yacht called the Alert.
The Alert. Okay, you've got my attention. Tell me more. What happened to the Alert?
Well, it was found adrift, right? Just floating out there. There was only one survivor, and you guessed it, another one of those creepy idols. Just like the ones from the swamp in Greenland.
Seriously, another idol. Okay, that can't be a coincidence.
Right, and the survivor, a sailor named Gustaf Johansson, had a pretty wild story to tell. He said his crew had a run-in with the Alert and its crew, which was pretty strange to begin with. He described them as Kanakas and half-castes, and then they ended up stranded on this mysterious island.
Wait a minute, are we suggesting that this island was Arlay, the sunken city?
Well, not quite, but Johansson's story, along with some of Angel's theories, they suggest that Arlaya isn't just a city, it's more like this interdimensional gateway, a place where the boundaries between our reality and other realms, they get all blurred.
Okay, that is seriously mind-bending.
Yeah.
So what did Johansson see when he got to this interdimensional gateway city?
He describes this landscape that just defies logic. Imagine a city built by beings that don't perceive space and time the way we do. He talks about non-Euclidean geometry, like walls that curve in impossible ways, angles that don't add up, and structures that seem to just shift and change as you're looking at them.
Non-Euclidean geometry. That sounds more like something out of a math textbook than a sailor's diary.
Right. But that's the thing about all of this. The Cthulhu mythos, it blends science fiction, horror, and this cosmic dread all into one. It really messes with your head.
Okay, so Johansson finds himself in this city that sounds like a Salvador Dali painting on steroids. And then what? Does he run into Cthulhu right away?
Not right away. He and one of his crewmates, they explored the city for a bit. Well, if you can call it exploring. They were more like rats in a maze, totally disoriented and terrified. But eventually, they stumbled upon Cthulhu.
Wow. Okay, I can only imagine what that was like. Did he describe Cthulhu? Give us the details.
Oh, he did. And his description is, well, it's both vivid and totally horrifying. He talks about this colossal figure, vaguely humanoid, with a head like a giant squid, and it's covered in scales and slime. It had these wings, if you can call them that, leathery like a bat, and its claws, oh man, they were long and sharp enough to rip through steel.
Okay, that is pure nightmare fuel. So what did Cthulhu do? Did it attack Johansson and his friend?
It did, but Johansson describes Cthulhu as being in this state of semi-awareness. Like it wasn't fully awake, but it was aware enough to sense their presence, and to react with aggression.
So it was like this giant cosmic sleepwalker with a really bad temper. That's a pretty good analogy. Cthulhu basically lumbered out of this massive cyclopean structure, which I'm guessing was its house at Arlay, and it started chasing Johansson and his crewmate, who were, of course, booking it back to their yacht as fast as they could.
I'm guessing this wasn't your average foot race. How do you outrun a creature that big and, well, that otherworldly?
You don't. Johansson knew they had no chance in a straight-up chase, so he did something incredibly daring and honestly kind of insane.
Okay, I've got to know.
What did he do?
He turned the yacht around and steered it straight at Cthulhu. Rammed him head-on at full speed.
He rammed Cthulhu with a yacht. I mean, I know we talk about human resilience and all, but that sounds more like suicide than strategy.
It was a total gamble, a last-ditch effort to survive. And somehow, it worked.
Wait, are you serious? He actually hurt Cthulhu by hitting him with a boat. What happened next?
Well, Johansson describes this incredible scene. As the yacht collides with Cthulhu, there's this blinding flash of light, and then an explosion of, you couldn't even describe it. It was like something out of a cosmic nightmare. And then silence. Cthulhu, he was injured, disoriented, and he kind of dissolved back into the sea, his essence, scattered among the waves.
Okay, that is both terrifying and weirdly satisfying. But doesn't this contradict everything we know about Cthulhu? I mean, he's supposed to be this invincible, all-powerful being. If a little boat can hurt him, is he really as dangerous as we thought?
That's the thing, isn't it? Cthulhu is this paradox. He's described as both a godlike being and a slumbering monster, capable of unimaginable power, but also apparently vulnerable. Remember, the chant says, dead but dreaming. Maybe dead doesn't mean literally dead, but a state of deep dormancy. a slumber so deep it takes a huge amount of energy to wake him up fully.
So like a bear in hibernation, but on a cosmic scale. And the earthquake, the storm, they stirred him just enough to lash out before he went back to sleep.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the cult and their motivations. If things like earthquakes and storms can disrupt Cthulhu's sleep, imagine what focused, ritualistic efforts could do.
You're saying they're intentionally trying to wake him up. But why? What do they hope to gain from unleashing such a monstrosity on the world?
That's the question that haunts me. What promises have they been told? What visions of power or glory have convinced them to serve something as alien and incomprehensible as Cthulhu?
It's fascinating and disturbing to think about. What do they believe? What kind of rituals do they perform? Is there any way to understand why they would worship such a cosmic horror?
To answer those questions, we need to look closer at Professor Angel's manuscript. He spent a lot of time trying to understand the beliefs and practices of the Cthulhu cult, especially the group Legras encountered in the Louisiana swamps.
We'll lead the way. I'm ready to go deeper down the rabbit hole. Or should I say the tentacle-filled abyss?
They had some seriously strange beliefs. They saw the Great Old Ones as beings that were, beyond human comprehension. Not just giant monsters, but forces of nature, embodiments of cosmic power.
So not just creatures, but like cosmic principles or something. That's even more abstract and scary than I imagined.
Right. The swamp cult believed that the Great Old Ones weren't bound by the laws of physics or biology, not the way we understand them anyway. They thought these beings were made of something that, defied definition. A kind of living energy, sentient energy that could change shape and form whenever it wanted.
It's like trying to understand the ocean by looking at one drop of water. How can we even begin to grasp something that exists on such a huge, incomprehensible scale?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Our human minds, they just aren't equipped to understand concepts that are so far outside our everyday experience. But the cult, they tried to bridge that gap through their rituals and devotion. They wanted to connect with these cosmic forces on a primal level.
So what were those rituals like? What did they actually do to worship these beings?
The details are kind of scattered, and they often contradict each other. They come from fragmented accounts and rumors. But it seems like the rituals involved chanting, dancing, and sacrifices. And the goal was to get the attention of the Great Old Ones and align themselves with their power.
Sacrifices. Okay, now we're getting into some seriously dark stuff. Do we know what kind of sacrifices they made?
Let's just say their understanding of reverence was a little different from ours. They believed that by offering up some of their own life force, they could appease the Great Old Ones and get their favor.
Wow. That's a pretty intense thought. It makes you wonder what could drive someone to believe that. What did they hope to get out of it? Eternal life? Power? Or something even weirder?
It's hard to say for sure. Their motives were probably as diverse as the people in the cult. Some might have been drawn to the promise of power. Others might have been looking for a connection to something bigger than themselves. And some might have just been afraid, desperate to appease these forces they didn't understand.
It's like a dark reflection of our own human desires and fears, but on a cosmic scale. It makes you think, what would it take for someone to give up their humanity and worship those alien entities?
It's a question that people have been asking for centuries. What drives people to extremes? Is it a thirst for power? A longing for the unknown? Or is there something fundamentally flawed in us that makes us vulnerable to these kinds of beliefs?
It's a disturbing thought, that's for sure. So we've got these ancient, powerful beings sleeping in the ocean, and we've got a cult that's trying to wake them up. What does all of this mean for us? Are we just waiting for the end of the world?
Not necessarily. Remember, these sources, even though they're terrifying, they also offer some hope. Like Johansson's encounter with Cthulhu, as short and traumatic as it was, shows that these beings aren't totally invincible.
That's right. He managed to fight Cthulhu off, at least for a little while, by ramming him with a yacht. Not exactly the best strategy, but it proves that even these cosmic horrors have weaknesses.
Exactly. And there are hints in Angel's manuscript, references to old texts, things like the Necronomicon, that suggest there might be ways to fight these entities, rituals and knowledge that could help protect humanity from their influence.
The Necronomicon. That sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. Is that a real book?
Well, that's a good question. Nobody knows for sure. It's all shrouded in mystery and rumors. Some people think it's completely made up, while others think it might be a real book, but encoded. It contains forbidden knowledge that's been passed down over centuries.
Forbidden knowledge, huh? Sounds risky. But if it holds the key to defeating these cosmic horrors, maybe it's a risk worth taking.
That's the dilemma, isn't it? Do we dare explore these dark corners of the world, risk our sanity, maybe even our souls, just to gain knowledge? Knowledge that might help us survive.
That's a tough one. So what's the takeaway for us? The regular people who aren't in cults or ramming yachts into sea monsters.
Yeah.
What can we do to prepare for the possibility of, well, Cthulhu waking up?
Well, first and foremost, awareness is key. We can't afford to ignore the weird stuff, the little hints of strangeness that might point to something bigger going on. Pay attention to your dreams, those unsettling visions. They might be trying to tell you something.
Okay, so awareness. What else?
Knowledge. Find information. Look into those old texts, even if they seem far-fetched or creepy. The more we know about the Cthulhu mythos, the better prepared we'll be for whatever comes next.
And lastly,
Courage. Even in the face of, total cosmic horror, we can't give up. Humanity has a knack for overcoming the odds. If Cthulhu and his friends ever decide to come back, we're going to need all our ingenuity and resilience to survive.
well said.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of luck, too.
Oh, definitely. A little luck never hurts.
Well, there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into the Cthulhu cult. We've talked about their strange beliefs, their disturbing rituals, and the potential threat they pose to humanity. It's a lot to take in, but it's important to be aware of these things.
One last thing to think about. If random events like earthquakes and storms can wake up these ancient entities, what other unintended consequences might our actions have on the balance of the cosmos? As we explore the universe, are we opening doors to realms we were never meant to enter?
That's something to think about for sure. Sleep tight, everyone, and maybe keep a dream journal by your bed, just in case.